Hello, everybody, and welcome to OpenExO Live. It is so great to be with you. We are a little earlier this week because we are chatting with Sophie, who is in Melbourne, Australia. And next week, we'll be chatting to Philip in Germany. And then we're going to take a little break. Everyone talks about a summer break, but for both Sophie and I, it is a winter break. We will then see you all in July again. And if you're interested in being in OpenExO Live, please do reach out, let us know. We really want to share the stories of folks who are in our community. And we have a lot of new community members as Exponential Organizations 2.0 has gone live on Kindle, and I'll tell you all here, going to be going live in the physical form, most likely August 1st. Don't tell anyone I told you because we haven't actually announced it yet. But before we get Sophie up on screen, I always have some messages from some people. And the first one comes from Soledad. And she just said, Sophie always inspires me with her light and brightness. She is generous, intelligent, and raises the level of any conversation, meeting, and working team where she is involved. I would love to work 10 times more with her. Next, we have Francisco, and he said, I've had the opportunity to work with Sophie on several projects, including EXO sprints, workshops, and mentoring startups. I admire her global vision and her collaborative team approach. I hope to continue collaborating with her on projects for a long time. Then we have Sahar, and Sahar said, Sophie's collaborative and friendly nature makes working with her such a pleasure. I first met Sophie during my coach certification, and then I got to work with her on multiple projects. The first thing I noticed about her is that she's an amazing coach. She has a talent for identifying areas where team members can grow and providing them with the tools they need to succeed. She never hesitates to support other coaches too. It's always a joy working with you, Sophie. Then we have Suman, and Suman said, it's an absolute joy and pleasure to work with Sophie. She possesses a rare combination of empathy, insight, and expertise that enable her to connect deeply with individuals, and she puts to use her varied and global experience. I would say that the teams that she coaches are lucky as Sophie invests herself fully in their journeys, providing unwavering support and guidance every step of the way. And then lastly, we have from Cherie, Sophie is an extraordinary coach and global strategist who works with leaders and change makers around the world to develop strategies, accelerate new business models, and drive innovation for purpose-driven impact. I've had the pleasure of collaborating with Sophie over the past 5 years, and have seen firsthand the incredible value she brings to each and every client. When coached by Sophie, teams are challenged and stretched to step out of their comfort zones and expand their worldview in a safe and supported way. As a result, they develop groundbreaking strategies to solve big problems and unlock amazing opportunities beyond what they could have imagined. With a unique blend of experience, capabilities, passion, and style, working with Sophie is a career-defining, life-changing experience for everyone who works with her. And so with that, I want to welcome Sophie to the screen. How are you doing this afternoon for you, Sophie?
I'm very well, Kevin. Thank you.
That is great. And so, Sophie, we've shared a few messages from some community members about you, but for those who don't know Sophie, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and also how you came to join the OpenExO community?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, the testimonies, they're always amazing, aren't they, Kevin? You really do know how to get some great testimonies from amazing people. And it's because, as Chief Community Officer, of course, you're well connected in this global community. And I've just noted down, we've got Soledad in Spain, Francisco in Brazil, Sahar in Bahrain, Suman in India, Shuri in Australia. Of those 5, I've spent hundreds of hours working with these people, and I've only met one in person, and that was Shuri last year. And so while we've been working together for 5 years, there's only one that I've met in person, but I feel like I know each of them very personally, and I would reach out to them at any hour of the day to ask something. And so why am I here? Why did I join the EXO community? Because it's a world of possibility. And it's because it's a community. Yes, there's this amazing book, the first version that blew open a world of possibility in terms of how can we grow better businesses in the world and how can we solve wicked problems with doing that. But actually that impact and that success is driven by an amazing group of people. And so to be transported to Spain, Brazil, Bahrain, India, and back home in Australia and speaking to you in South Africa, it's this sense that the world is small and the possibilities are great. And when I heard about OpenExO, at the time it was EXO Lever, it was like, what is that? I don't know what that is, but the little bit I heard of it, it made sense. And this, of course, was well before COVID, well before kind of the war wasn't happening in Europe. There wasn't China with geopolitical risk and tension in Asia. But something about it made sense, even then when the world kind of made more sense in general. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think we sort of joined the community at a very similar time. We were actually our coach certifications, we were on the same cohort, although I don't think, no, I think we might have even been on the same course, not in the same team, because of course you were in Australia, and I think probably had a team of folks that were within your time zone. But it's actually crazy to think it's been 5 years. And as you've said, I mean, like the ability to see how small the world is and to have that sort of expanded worldview, I think within the community, it's easy to see that. For those that are new to the community or not even in our community, though, having that expanded worldview is maybe not something that's commonplace. So, how do we, when you're working with people, how do you actually, get them to see the value in expanding that worldview?
Yeah, really great question. So I think for all of us, the world really feels like a crazy place, and it can feel really stuck. And, to read the news can be quite horrifying. And I don't know about you, Kevin, but I see people who are not with this kind of expanded worldview who are really focusing on the news, and it drives sort of an obsession of what's wrong in the world, what's not working, what's stuck, and it makes people contract and control even more. And so when we see, things aren't working, well, we've got to double down and cut costs. We've got to, increase productivity, and kind of going back to things that were tried and tested, but they're not as effective as they used to be. And so when we've got this expanded worldview where we know that we don't have to squeeze more out, we don't have to sort of try and take a larger slice of the pie, there's this whole other way of expanding the pie, creating new pies even. When you don't have that, it feels like a lonely world. It feels like a dark world. There is this, this sense of, I think, a lack of control, that the powers that be, political leaders, business leaders have power, and there feels like there's a lack of agency among lots of people, be it working in big companies or just citizens. I'm sure you have dinner table conversations about that kind of stuff as well. But when we have this expanded worldview, we get to make sense of the world in a different way. Our mental model of how the world works changes. We know that there is stuff working in the world. And of course, when Celine created the first version of the book, there was the study of, a couple hundred unicorns, the world's fastest growing companies. And so what we can do with this expanded worldview is decide to focus on what's working, and we can make it work for us, and we can make it work for our clients. We can make it work for big business, small business, government institutions, NGOs. Pick your domain to play. And so when people don't have this expanded worldview, I think it sort of comes up. Are they the people that I refer to, OpenExO, the ones that I say, hey, there is this other way. There is this other way of working and looking at the world and making sense of the world. It's those people that themselves have a sense. They have a sense that they could do or be something more. They have a sense that where they are, they're feeling really stuck, that they're playing a small game. They have a sense that, for example, so Cherie, who has featured already today, Cherie has a wonderful comment that says, the future of work is already here. You just need to know where to find it. And when you're stuck in news and narrative that keeps you small, you can't get out and find something like a future of work that is already here, as Cherie says, that isn't talking about work from home versus return to office mandates or hybrid. It's actually, high performing global autonomous teams who are doing amazing work, leveraging, tapping into staff on demand. So we know that happens. And when some people have a sense, like this return to work mandate, like, is this it? Is this really is this stepping into the space to do big things? It's like, well, no, it's not. And so when we can say, that sense, listen, tap into that sense, but also they can intellectualize that there's businesses that are performing really well in the world. We might like them, we might not like them, we might love Elon Musk, we might not. That's not the point. I don't think the point is they're doing something that's working. And what we can do is take that apart and understand and ask questions around that, unpack it, ask, so what? How do we take what's working and apply it more broadly and make it work for more people? And I think that's a key driving force of what the EXO community and the framework we get to use is about.
Yeah, absolutely. And Sophie, do you think you have, you've worked in multiple countries and then also with massive institutions that are potentially quite lumbering, and innovative companies as well. And then so when you actually first discovered the EXO model, and then now in these 5 years, leveraging it, do you think your view of the, what a sort of, for lack of a better word, sort of dinosaur type of institution is working? Do you think that gives you a different perspective, to why it's so important to be thinking with an exponential mindset?
Yeah, absolutely. I grew up in Australia, as you know. I didn't travel. My family, we weren't a family of travelers. We had, some family ties overseas, but it was very much a local and sort of limited existence. But like so many children, I grew up, okay, you either want to be a marine biologist or you want to work for the UN. And I had my marine biology aspiration time, and then I went, it's the UN. And in my 20s, I got my dream job. I started as an international consultant and then as an employee in Geneva, working in international economic development with the UN. It was my dream job. I went with the biggest aspirations of making a positive impact in the world. And I think that's because so many of us look at the world and whether you grew up with privilege or not, I think we all can see that the world is an amazing place, but it's not amazing for everyone. It could be so much better for so many more people. And so when I arrived in Geneva, I thought that this was my chance to do work that was really, really important to me. And it was actually, Kevin, I was standing with my UN passport at Kampala airport in the diplomatic line, and my I just felt very, very empty. I felt like I'm here to do important work, but I'm actually not able to, because this is a big bureaucracy. You've got donor conditions, international aid conditions put on you. I'm in line with about 50 other people off various flights that have just arrived. That's probably an exaggeration. It's a small airport. Okay, so you're in line with 10 other people from UN agencies. And it's like we're all here to develop and progress, do work that's really important, but we're not moving the needle. And I just felt very shallow and thought, you know what, I think there has to be a better way. And so I decided to return to the private sector, where I felt as though there was more agency for me to be a part of developing solutions that do things like reduce the inequality gap, financial inequality gap, and that sort of stuff. But I still felt a little bit rudderless for a few years. And then I found, was introduced to the EXO framework and to the community. And that's when I knew that's it. That's it. And once you know it, once you know the framework, and let me tell you, Kevin, I obsessed, like many of us do. We obsess over this framework. Like I was up. My family thought I was crazy. I did my ambassador's certification from like 2 to 5 a.m. I was up countless nights through the night, and then having client, meetings, physical meetings at 9 a.m. But I was there. I was at every online meeting to get to know the people and the framework, and pouring thousands of hours into this framework because I wanted it to feel intuitive, because it wasn't. Because, I've done an MBA. All that stuff shows you, of course, as Salim says so eloquently, how things were done in the past. How do we do it now? What's working? And how do I have that intuitive reaction of, this is what's working, therefore I can deliver and develop stuff in this space. So, but the power of there's absolute power in knowing what doesn't work in the world. So I've worked in big business, the multilateral system, UN. Knowing what doesn't work has made me absolutely convinced we should not spend time trying to correct broken things. We should just create better alternatives. And I know how to do that. And I'm with a community, like the people that you've mentioned already on the call. We are, and we can, and we will do really amazing things, because the world needs it, and because we want to do it.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's so important to actually also get to that point where the model is extremely intuitive. You're not having to go look back and say, oh, what is that fifth attribute again? And the thing that I really love about the EXO model is that it doesn't sort of it doesn't make other models obsolete necessarily, right? So it's more about being like that sort of umbrella, I guess, framework where where people, especially if you go into an organization and they're like, okay, no, but we have to use design thinking here, and therefore we can't use the X model. Well, no, not at all. And you absolutely can. You still can leverage these attributes. And so, how would you say you actually sort of, it's now just ingrained absolutely in your thinking sort of day to day? So do you knowingly think about the model, or do you think it's just become more intuitive in how you actually work with teams and people?
Yeah, it's definitely become a filter to see the world and to make decisions. And I know we can use an MTP for that. And the MTP, of course, is a really important one. And you start noticing in the world, where is a massive purpose, even if it's not crafted as an MTP. For me, it also equates to ambition. Where is an ambition to do something that positively impacts the world? And if that ambition isn't there, well, then what's your role in the world, and how sustainable is that? And then you're absolutely right, Kevin. I think at the heart of everything in this community and in the framework is inclusivity. It's not to say we have to do this at the exclusion of this. Experimentation, of course, is at the heart of it. Are people experimenting? Are you, as a company, what is experimentation for you? So again, if a company is saying, AI is bad, okay, but does it have to be? What about experimenting with generative AI? If we're living in a time of economic contraction, what about enabling your people to use generative AI to help them to design projects faster, help them to draft project proposals faster? I mean, it can be quite basic stuff, but the spirit of experimentation, you can see companies where there's a need to control, or business leaders where there's this need to control scarce resources, control people, control reputation and positioning, control our position in the world, versus these others where the obsession is to create. And we don't actually know what we have. An ambition, a massive transformative purpose to create something that is needed and necessary. This is not zero sum. We want to capture all the benefits and the gains for ourselves. That end game, that vision, that aspiration, the purpose, of course, we don't know how we're going to get there. And you see, people don't know how they're going to get there, but they know that there's a process to follow. They know that there's a framework, and indeed the EXO framework is about experimentation. It's about not needing to be an expert. When we see people that are hanging on for dear life to their expertise, it's like, hey, maybe sit lightly with that and just build a great network around you where you can access the world's biggest and brightest minds within a 24-hour period globally. I mean, that's one of the beautiful things, of course, about this EXO community, the network. So it's such a difference when you know what is possible. So when I talk about this expanded worldview and this expanded world of possibility, the teams I work with, I say, we are going to do things that are very, very technical. Like this business model that we're going to validate is going to be underpinned by technology that you right now do not understand. And let me tell you, you do not need to be an expert in this technology. We will bring those people in. We will find them and we will bring them in, and they will help us to validate and build this business model. But know what you want as the outcome. Know what you want as the impact. Why are we doing this? And then we bring in the people as needed, and we experiment around it, and we use technology. And if it's generative AI, fabulous. Let's do that. And so it's like a lightness in the world of getting where we want to go, instead of being very uptight almost and rigid and stuck where we are.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, one thing you said there, Sophie, you started speaking about organizations, and then you switched and said no individuals, right? And one thing I've noticed is that, yes, you have organizational culture, but individuals and leaders within an organization can make such a difference, right?
Right.
And so how do you work with sort of leadership to understand their role in leveraging a more expanded exponential type of thinking, because it's not necessarily the organization. Often it is the leader within the organization.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's good. Well done on picking me up on that, Kevin. And I think the kind of pivot to talking about people is because it's people who are making decisions. It's people who are doing the heavy lifting, or people who are building, the company, or holding it where we're holding it back. Everything we do it boils down to people. And so, of course, and everything within that can impact the culture and the organizational and company outcomes. And so, for example, I'll give you an example, Kevin. In an EXO sprint, we are working as EXO coaches. We are working with a group of not particularly senior leaders, deliberately so, in a company, typically a legacy, quite traditional industry. And we have sponsors or champions who are senior leaders in the business. And what I tell my teams is, you know, we're going to have regular weekly contact. You know, you're going to be presenting to this leader, and you are not there to convince. You are not there to get their buy-in. You know, the first half, if you like, of the sprint, we are there to understand what are their gaps, what are their biases. Is the immune system attacking what they're hearing? And a great example is there was an oil and gas company we ran a sprint with a couple of years ago, and in week 2 of the sprint, one of the champions said, "We will never be a technology company." And then by week 7, they were saying, "If we are not becoming a technology company, we will not exist anymore." And so it's this, what can we do to understand where is the senior management, where are the senior leaders at? And senior leaders, how do we also make sure, and this is a big part of the work we do as well, how do we make sure that we're letting ideas win over hierarchy? How do we make sure that instead of this immune attack, you know, corporate immune system attack taking place, how do we get senior leaders, executives, the sponsors to say, okay, you know, I actually have no idea what you're talking about. This is very different, unusual for me, but we've got to figure this out. And so how do we shift the dial so that there's an openness and take them on the journey? And what does that journey need to look like so that we're getting win-win outcomes for buy-in at the end of the sprint or other type of initiative?
Yeah, absolutely. And the interesting thing is I mean, initiatives like a sprint and there are others, you know, can really act as sort of, I guess, like an immune suppressant drug, right? Because generally an immune response within an organization is good to a certain point, right? Where it becomes more of an autoimmune disease, where it just stops all innovation and says, you know, we must remain the same. So it's and often I've seen it where it's very difficult to get through and you don't, but then there's other times where the switch seems to be quite simple. But there's definitely, I guess there's no absolute silver bullet. There's no silver bullet in anything, I guess, in the world.
Yeah, I agree. We'd love a silver bullet every now and then, wouldn't we? That would be fabulous. But it's a journey, and I think that the path to big wins is paved with lots of small wins, and we get the small wins through experimentation and empathy. Empathy. Where is that person at, and where do we meet them? Let's meet people where they're at and walk together with them. And so that's not telling people you're wrong. You need to read this book and start thinking about, you know, like, where are you at? What are the gaps? And how do I take it upon myself to help fill those gaps in a productive way where we're reaching win-win outcomes? What is success to them, and what is holding them back from achieving success? Everyone wants to look good. Everyone needs to look good in a time of economic contraction, be it in government, be it in big, small business, wherever in the world. So what matters to them, and how do we tap into that and make outcomes genuinely win-win?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Sophie, we could keep talking, but the time has pretty much come to an end. I always end off by asking the question, if there's only one thing you want people to hear, what is the one thing that you think is important for people watching to know?
The one thing is we get to make our world through our people-to-people interactions. We are a world of almost 5 billion people that have an active internet connection. We're all connected by one of these. Get out and explore your world. Get out and meet people. If you have gaps in your world, if you don't know someone in, for example, Bangalore, one of the world's most innovative cities, fill that gap. Get out into the world, make your world a better place by understanding what it is. And with that, you'll see more. And when you see more, you might have that desire to do more, and you'll know people that can do it together with you.
Awesome. Couldn't agree any more. Sophie, it's been wonderful chatting to you. We'll chat to you again soon, and maybe even one day meet each other. Australia's far away, but I know that the Global Entrepreneurship Congress is happening, I think, in Melbourne this year. So
it is, yeah.
There may be some EXO community members that are heading down there. Hopefully there can maybe be a gathering, but not sure if it'll be me. But
well, we hope it is. We hope it is you, Kevin, and if it's not this year, sometime soon. But yeah, welcome. If anyone is coming by Melbourne, I don't know that you come by, but if anyone is coming to Melbourne, we have fantastic coffee, fantastic wine. It'd be great to catch up.
Awesome, Sophie. It's been so great. We'll chat to you again soon.
Wonderful. Thanks, Kevin.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
So great chatting to Sophie, and as I said, we will be chatting next week with Philip from Germany. And with that, I want to say thank you to everybody, and we'll see you again next week.